What's going on, everybody? This is Sean of Raw Select Music. Today I want to talk about these two records right here. I've been listening to them both quite a bit as of late and wanted to share my thoughts and opinions of them and let you know why I think they're worth checking out in this segment that I still don't have a name for. Raw Select Record Recommendations, Raw Select Record Rundown. I don't know, I'll think of something. But anyways, with all that being said, let's get into these two. Things off with the new record first. We got Suff Daddy, Pompette, I think that's how you say it, released on Jakarta Records in 2020. Now, for those of you who might be unfamiliar with who Suff Daddy is, he is a beat maker slash producer based out of Cologne, Germany, I believe. And he's been going for a while. He's got his start, or at least started releasing records back in the late 2000s and really started gaining some notoriety in the early 2010s. Now, I've been a huge fan of his stuff, as you can tell by all the different records that I have in my collection. But actually, I went into this record with a little bit of trepidation. Although I am a huge fan of Suff Daddy, his previous two works, both Baker's Dozen and Bird Songs, I wasn't that big of a fan of. They're not terrible records, but I didn't quite like the fact that Suff Daddy had been moving more away from the more sample-oriented sounds and moving into a more synth-heavy sound for himself. And I think largely it felt like some of the newer stuff that he had been putting out didn't really have the same level of creative spark as some of his previous releases. But after hearing the track, Probably Broccoli with S Fidelity, I actually started getting really excited for this record. And now that I've listened to it quite a few times, I gotta say, I think this is probably Suff Daddy's most inspired release in a long time, despite the fact that he continues to move away from the more sample-oriented sounds of the past and more in this synth-based direction that he's doing on his more recent output. I quite like this record. I think some of the synth sounds that he's using on this record are a lot more interesting than he sounded on previous projects. And in general, I feel like this is a much more positive sounding record than some of his previous releases. I'm not against music that has sort of a darker, more d'humour tone to it, but releases like Baker's Dozen and Bird Songs just had this overwhelming sadness to them and bleakness to them that really isn't present on here. This is, honest to God, just a fun record to listen to. And it not only feels fun, it also feels like he's sounding just as creative on this record as he did on some of his classic releases like Suff Says and the split EP with Taku. I really like a lot of the tracks. I was a little bit turned off by the amount of collaborators on this track, guys like Illa J, Guilty Simpson, Kadisha, but overall, I think the tracks that do have vocalists on them, Suff Daddy serves them well, even if instrumentally there's some of the weaker tracks on here, but they still have quite a bit of snap, quite a bit of groove, quite a bit of head nod to them, and definitely make this an incredibly enjoyable listen. There are not quite as many up-tempo tracks as I would like. There are a few deviations into some like boogie funk sort of sounds, especially on tracks like Super Suff Kato, Club Bob Needs More Sex Drugs, and Lamborari. But the majority of the tracks also have him continuing to explore some of the more trap sounds that he'd been doing with songs on Bird Songs. I think just the overall vibe of a lot of these songs is very sunny, very colorful, very energetic, very fun, and just really make this an enjoyable record, in my opinion. The first side of the record, there really isn't a weak track on here. And then the second side of the record with his live band, the track with the Lunchbirds is so good. And that Probably Broccoli track that he did with S Fidelity is easily one of the best trap sounding beats that he's done so far. I would say my only real complaint is that some of the vocal performances are a little bit weak. Honestly, I still can't quite get behind Illa J. I feel like he's still lacking in his delivery, and he seems sort of confused as to, does he want to be a singer? Does he want to be a rapper? And I feel like his moments on here are the weakest. But the female-led vocal stuff is great on here. The Juju Juju Rogers' track, My Word, is really, really good. Guilty Simpson actually ends up turning in a pretty awesome performance, and that says a lot to me because I've never really been a huge fan of Guilty Simpson. And the instrumentals on here are really, really cool. I love the ambient track that closes out the album with Torquey Torque called Too Much. So yeah. In general, a surprisingly excellent release from Suff Daddy, and definitely one, if you haven't checked out, give this one a listen. Alright, then we have a record from 2019 that I really, really wanted to pick up but never got a chance to because it was sold out throughout the majority of last year, and that is Myele Manzanza's Myele Manzanza's A Love Requited, released on First Word Records. For those of you who may not be familiar with who Myele Manzanza is, he is a drummer slash producer slash kind of DJ from New Zealand, and it seems like he's been going for a while. If you check out on his YouTube channel, he has releases and videos dating all the way back to the early 2010s. But he seems like a real versatile drummer. The sounds that I was hearing from some of his earliest work seemed like he was going for more of a classic funk and soul sort of tone with a little bit of a modern twist. And on this record, it really seems like he's going all in on that modern jazz sound that I've become quite a fan of. If you enjoy artists like Robert Glasper, Joe Armon-Jones, and Mark DeClive Lowe, who coincidentally shows up on this record, you're probably going to like this record. And truth be told, I find that there's a lot in common with this release and the two Mark DeClive Lowe heritage records that came out last year. The general tone on this record is very meditative and very, very thought-provoking. And it definitely has elements and a classic jazz feel to it. There's really, really cool arrangements on here. Some really, really dynamic track shifts going from some very new school sounding hip hop on tracks like Family Dynamics and Itaru's Phone Booth before switching into like full on jazz breakdown. All of the songs on here are fairly lengthy, going between 6 to 8 minutes, and definitely take on these sort of mini epic-esque tones to them. Even the first track, Ritual, starts off very similar to Joe Armon-Jones's Starting Today track. It's very upbeat, very up-tempo. And overall, I gotta say, I really like this record. The arrangements are super lush. If you look at the musician credits on here, you'll see a wide variety of different musicians on here. Myele Manzanza's drumming on here is absolutely top-notch. He plays with a lot of forcefulness, but also knows how to really control the dynamic of the song that he's playing on. Whether it's some of the quieter moments in the latter half of the record, tracks like Mortality, Big Deal, and A Love Requited, and Madrid, to some of the more bombastic moments like the previously talked about Family Dynamics. There's some really interesting moments on here. If I had one little quibble with it, I do think that the first half of this record is a lot more memorable than the second half of it. Thinking right off the top of my head, I can really imagine and hear those first 3 songs really quickly. The second half doesn't quite stick out in my mind quite as much, but I still find that it is an enjoyable listen nonetheless. And that's pretty much all I really have to say about this record. It's an enjoyable listen, and if you're looking to add some music to your modern jazz collection, definitely can't go wrong with Myele Manzanza's A Love Requited. So that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks as always for watching. If you've listened to either of these 2 records, please let me know what you thought about them down in the comments. If you want to hear some of the music from these records for yourself, please head over to my WordPress or Steemit blogs. That's where you'll find music links to any of the records that I talk about on this channel. Also, make sure you head over to my Mixcloud. There you can check out Raw Select Radio, the audio component of this YouTube channel, as well as make sure that you check out some of the live streams that I've been posting to this channel. Links to everything, as always, down in the description. But that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks as always for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. So until then, peace out!